Hello and welcome to the RPG Talk Show. I'm your host, Hawk Robinson, with co-host
John Wilker.
And also joining us remotely over Jitsi is Dan. Introduce yourself.
Oh, it's me, Daniel. Sorry.
Yeah, down in Brazil. And this is December 13th, 2018. We've been kind of on hiatus for a little while due to a combination of PAX Unplugged and projects and some illness on my part. But we're back up and running and getting back into the groove of things. So quick little, for those of you not familiar with the RPG Talk Show, this show discusses weekly news, information, commentary, discussion, and debate about the effects of all role-playing game formats and their potential uses for professional, educational, recreational, and therapeutic goals. The RPG Talk Show is not just about the latest modules and releases. There are plenty of sources for that information. But we will mention such releases when related to the aforementioned topics. You can learn more about the RPG Talk Show, hosts, guests, and the archives of previous episodes on our website at rpgtalkshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at RPG Talk Show. You can catch our show live on twitch.tv/RPG Research, now on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and chat with us during the live broadcast in Twitch. RPG Research Patreon supporters can access the recorded episodes a month or more before they are available to the general public as a thank you for your support. Role-playing game formats include the original Tabletop, usually referred to as TRPG or just RPG, live-action role-playing, aka LARP, electronic role-playing games, eRPG, and solo adventure books or modules, aka SABM. We use those acronyms frequently throughout the show, so it's good to define that for those new to the show. And we are now using eRPG for now.
Correct.
The episode sponsored by the wonderful Patreon supporters for the nonprofit RPG Research. We're also sponsored by RPG Therapeutics, LLC. You can learn more about RPG Research, the nonprofit 501c3 research and human services organization studying the effects of all RPG formats and their potential to improve lives at rpgresearch.com, and about RPG Therapeutics, LLC, the for-profit professional services company at rpgtherapeutics.com. Our show varies each week, but a typical format usually includes the latest general RPG news related to our focus on role-playing games and research, community response and discussion, RPG-related theory and application discussions, latest updates on RPG Research, the RPG Bus, RPG Trailer, RPG Tour, and many others. So, today, let's go ahead and start, John, with some of the news that you would like to discuss.
All right. First thing up is as I pulled up into the driveway here, I received a email from Gen Con, and this is also available on their website. But announcing charity partners for Gen Con 2019. We're excited to announce our two awesome charity partners for Gen Con 2019, Special Olympics Indiana and Game to Grow.
Oh, wow.
We love the dedication and passion each of these organizations put in their work in local and larger communities. In years past, we will have several opportunities to raise funds for the show, morning dice rolls, the auction, card holiday destruction, and more. Read about each of these charities below and check out gencon.com for further information.
Cool.
So Special Olympics Indiana has been around since 1969, and Game to Grow is the 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2017 on the belief that games of all kinds have the power to improve people's lives.
And they're near here over in Seattle, Washington.
Correct.
And that's actually the Adams, originally from Wheelhouse Workshop. And
Adam Davis, Adam Johns.
Yep, and I was with one of them at PAX Unplugged.
So why don't you want to tell us a little bit about PAX Unplugged?
Okay, yeah, so I'm back from PAX Unplugged, and it was a blast of an event over in Philadelphia a couple weeks ago. It was on a couple of panels. The first panel was on the therapeutic game mastering and therapeutic gaming, and then the second panel was on accessibility and inclusiveness in gaming. And then also had an interview by Dr. Megan Connell for her show, and her little 10-minute blurb that will be coming up at some point. We're waiting. I've seen some videos like Jack Birkenstock's and a few others. Their videos are already out there public. I'm waiting to see the ones from our panels come out hopefully soon. And so that's exciting. Also, Dr. Megan Connell asked if I would join Clinical Role, which is awesome. So I said yes to that. That will start
every other Monday?
Yeah, it won't start apparently till January, February.
Okay.
When they resume it. So, since they're juggling a lot of things right now, such as. And for the first time, had people claim they were fans. Met 3 people who were self-proclaimed fans. That was a new experience. Wasn't quite sure what to do with that, except say thank you, and that was very kind of them, and they were very excited. One person has picked a whole career path because of what they read on rpgresearch.com when they were 12, and now is all the way up to their working on their master's in these related fields because of what they read on the website, and it got them excited about the potential.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a little awesome and also a little unnerving to have that much of an impact on somebody that they made their career decisions because of it. But we've been getting more and more of that. You know, people are talking about moving up here to Spokane to join.
Even as far away as Brazil.
Potentially, I don't know where Dan's at on that. I know there's a lot of complexity to that, but you know, the other Dan Ivers, you know, he moved here last year, and then and of course Charles,
right,
and then we have somebody from California talking about moving here potentially, both to work for RPG Research and then later for the LLC, to try to get as much training as possible. So it's interesting because little Spokane is a little out of the way. So, but it's more affordable than being in the Seattle area. So that's kind of the trade-off. And a lot of people that are trying to move away from California, their expensive places, look at Spokane as a more affordable place to live than if we were in Seattle, and how much more expensive it is, way more expensive it is over there. So trade-offs.
And you met with the DOTS project? And
yes.
You have some things that are
I've
NDA.
got a number of things. You know, they gave us their little buttons and such, and very excited about what they're doing. And they have a nice long blog posting. We'll have to link to it. Their experience at PAX. And they were kind enough to spend a couple of paragraphs talking about, because I spent a couple of hours talking to the RPG Dots project, because they're manufacturing accessible gaming materials such as Braille dice. Braille. Oh, where did I put it? Do you have something else you can cover while I go try to grab that Braille book?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll be talking more about this when Hawk comes in, but to start with, our main topic of the day will be women in gaming, and there happens to be some news articles that are relevant to it. Tabletop Tuesday RPG duns are done with edgelords and bigots. Quick definition of edgelords is someone who attempts to seem edgy by doing or saying risque or offensive things. So there are, unfortunately, people in our groups who are playing role-playing games that want to gatekeep, keep people out, or just think it's just a role-playing game, we can be as offensive as we want to. So we will definitely be talking about that. I have, just as a filler here, I recently received my Christmas gift from my Uncles in the Valley game group. I run games there every Wednesday. I'm their organizer for the Dungeons and Dragons that happens there. And my group decided to all chip in and get me this wonderful book. This is Art and Arcana, a Visual History. And it's quite a nice thick book with all the artwork through the history of Dungeons and Dragons. So that was a good thing to have.
Indeed.
All right, so you've got your Braille stuff.
Right. Well, so here's the packet from PAX Unplugged with the programs and everything. And so when you look for these, let's see if I can find the specific. I had it highlighted, but seem to have misplaced it. Oh well. Anyway, check that out. Yes, so they included here basically a little booklet on how to practice reading Braille to read the dice. So if you see, John, and I'll try to hold up the camera in a minute.
Here's the instructions in Braille.
Yep.
Nice.
So see if
I'm
we
not
can get
sure
that.
if you people can see the dots on the camera.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it. There we
you
go. So this is definitely an episode when you need the visual part.
Right.
Ironically.
In order to talk about, you need to be able to see so we can talk about people who can't.
Yeah, and so a key thing that they talk about is how in the past they used, in Braille, normally 1 through 9 was represented the letters A through J, and then you just repeat it. So for a 2-digit number, you'd say like A, B, and A, C, and etc.
Okay.
But what they did to save space, because of how small it is for the Braille, we've shown the Braille dice many times on this show. They used K through T to be for a 20-sided die for 11 through 20.
Okay.
So they didn't have to do 2 digits to save space and still make it readable by touch. So that's something innovative that they did through repeated feedback and such. They're working on other options, and I'm hoping to help them with a lot of what they're trying to do. They're setting up their Patreon finally. I've really urged them to get going on it. They thought they had to have everything else in place before they could do their Patreon, but really they can put a Patreon up to help them get all those things in place. Like pay for the 501c3 paperwork and all that.
Right.
So it was encouraging them to get going on that, and they are now getting that rolling. So watch for that from the ttrpg project. They post frequently on Twitter and Facebook. They're pretty good about that. The website is dotsrpg.com.
There's one of your panels. Inclusivity in gaming.
Yeah, that was the later one. That was the Saturday. Or no, that's not. No, that's a different one. That's Autism Spectrum. That was a different panel. It was at 4:30. It was in the Leviathan Theater Roll for Healing Therapeutic Game Master Roundtable. The therapeutic use. Let me get the microphone back up here. The therapeutic use of role-playing games has all but hit the mainstream. Join us for a discussion between the top minds in the field of therapeutic role-playing about what makes their approaches similar, what defines them, and how you can make your own game better for you and your players. Panelists include Adam Davis, Executive Director and Therapeutic Game Master for Game to Grow, Adam Johns, Executive Director of Therapeutic Game Master Game to... I don't think they were they both? Maybe they were, I forget.
We'll see when we get the video.
Yeah. I thought only one was there that day, but I could be mistaken. Raphael Bocamatzo, a.k.a. Dr. B, from Clinical Role and Take This. Dr. Megan Connell, therapist, Southeast Psych. Jack Birkenstock, Executive Director of Bodana Group. And Hawk Robinson, founder of RPG Research and President of RPG Therapeutics. So that was Friday, so that will be out there eventually, soon, hopefully. And then at 10 a.m. on Saturday, also in the Leviathan Theater, Bringing Others to the Table. RPGs are for everyone. Why wouldn't they be? We want as many friends around the table as we can get. However, there are sometimes barriers, both obvious and subtle, physical and cultural, to people joining in on the fun. Join Take This and our panel of inclusivity activists as they discuss their barriers to play, as well as their practical tips on how to include diverse groups of people at your table. Panelists include Dr. Megan A. Connell, PsyD, ABPP, co-founder Geeks Like Us, Adam Davis, co-founder Game to Grow, Tanya DePass, founder I Need Diverse Games, Hawk Robinson, founder RPG Therapeutics, Dr. B, a.k.a. Dr. Raphael Bocamatzo, clinical director Take This, Carlos Luna, streamer and podcaster The Dungeon Rats. Are you familiar with them at all? I hadn't met them previously.
Nope.
But it was nice to meet both Tanya and Carlos, as well as the others, the other panels. So that was great to see them. So those two should be coming out sooner or later, in at least audio and hopefully also visual.
Excellent.
And then we'll need to get somebody to transcribe and do closed captioning and such for our deaf community and such.
Still looking for volunteers for
Yeah,
that.
we need more of those.
Now, that
A couple people have
segues-
started doing because we have a lot of videos, and a few people have started some of the transcripts and some of the closed caption, but nobody's ever finished them. Because it's a lot of work. It's very time consuming. So, and none of the automated systems work well at all. It only works, like if you're doing a one-person speaking presentation that's very slow and controlled, the automated will mostly work.
Right.
That's about the only circumstances with really good audio. Otherwise, it just doesn't work very well. What do we have next here, John?
well,
first of all, let me ask Dan, did you have a topic you wanted to discuss?
Dan?
Did we lose him?
Not
Okay, there you go.
particularly. Oh, sorry. I'm just I'm perusing the characters on the side, so take
Okay.
a while for me to get to the mute button.
Okay, well, make sure, I'll try to give opportunities for you to be able to comment and join in the conversation. So, John, what do we have next on our agenda here?
Well, you were talking about at PAX, you guys did inclusivity, and this brings us right into a couple of the articles. They mostly cover the same things. We have Tabletop Tuesdays, RPGs are done with edgelords and bigots. This was on Pulp Culture Uncovered.com, November 20th, 2018. And this is talking about the backlash from things such as
Gamergate and...
Gamergate, OSR versus story game, where people are trying to use the old school rules as an excuse to do old
Exclude.
school methods, excluding people, thinking that women aren't gamers, those kind of strange things.
Right.
Like Gamergate, Sad Puppies, Star Wars purists, etc., the industry is rife with the worst movements of individuals, internet trolls, and false centrists. Spout the rhetoric as white supremacists and their alt-right in their bid to keep social justice warriors out of their hobby. Although recent events have been most tumultuous, the beginning and the end was seen in D&D Gate, which is a weak attempt to copy Gamergate. And people have decided to take one step further and, just not just say, we don't agree with your gatekeeping. We're going to actually try to turn what you're doing into something a little more beneficial. So first thing that happened with D&D hashtag D&D Gate was people started using it to post things about magical gates for Dungeons and Dragons. Portals and things like that. But exclusive gaming is important tabletop role-playing gaming, and that's why we're proud to announce for 2019 the title of our next book, D&D Gate, Stories of Inclusivity in Role-Playing Games. This is Grim and Perilous Studios announcing its next book. And that's on grimandperilous.com to find out more about that book. It will be a collection of stories by women, LGBTQ+, people of color, and those with disabilities and other marginalized groups about their first experience playing role-playing games and how identity impacts their lives in and outside the game table. The stories inside will be written by the community, drawn from volunteers across social media. And proceeds will be going to Extra Life.
Okay, good. So this is a thing that comes up all the time, and it goes all the way back. One of the first books written about role-playing games and research and such was Gary Fine's, shared... actually, I got that book back in the TV room. I need... But I got so many pages here going. But let's first, before we zero in on role-playing games, let's just talk about the broader world of gaming in general.
Right.
And the ratio male-female and such. So if you a quick search will find various resources, some more up-to-date than others, some better done than others. You can find a few summarized on Wikipedia that link then to some useful studies. And then I found a few other studies as well, of course. And basically the trend has been more and more towards 50-50 male-female. Just gaming across the board.
Right.
Video games, board games, role-playing games, what have you. Closer
Poker.
and closer to that. in video games, it is now arguably more female dominant than male dominant as of the last 2 years, according to various research studies. Some of these have been posted on the Washington Post and some others. So even as far back as 2014, back during Gamergate and such, there was already a major trend where female gamers were pretty much becoming an equal number of gamers compared to male gamers. The average age being around 37 in the female side, a little older for the male side. And now that depends on the study. There's a different variety there. It also makes a big difference what the genre is.
Right.
So if it's, for example, a male, again, this is from a 2014 study, Max Payne was about 78% male versus Just Dance was only 37% male. So that kind of fits the stereotypes you would expect.
Right.
But if we get more in the middle here, we got Zelda around 60. Again, this is 2014, and the numbers have changed dramatically since this time. But Zelda, 62% male. We got Super Mario Brothers, only 49% male. SimCity, only 53%. Although, so this book here, Women in Gaming: The Sims in 21st Century Learning, that's SimCity. Sims is more like 80% female. And so this book, Women in Gaming: The Sims in 21st Century Learning by James Paul G. and Elizabeth R. Hayes, came out in 2010. And so it, again, pretty much focuses on video games and eventually zooms in on Sims and Second Life as some major social environments and how they're actually quite female dominated. So that's something, worth checking out.
Strange aside about Second Life, and I'm not sure if this is an attempt to bring in more female gamers to Second Life, but one of the things that they seem to be focusing on the last times I saw the advertisements for it, was the possibility of your character becoming pregnant.
I didn't know that one. I've been on Second Life since like its early quasi-public beta and stuff, but I barely ever use it. I've been involved with VR since the 80s and keep waiting for it to fully catch on, and it always does fits and starts. And back in the 90s we had Vermal, the virtual reality markup language, and before that we had the Amigas with all the great VR video games. But blocky, but they were VR. Just and the quality keeps getting better. And it's becoming. You see it now more frequently at the electronic stores and such than in a long time.
Right. So
it may finally, because of mobile computing and such, may finally be able to break through that. We'll see. There's none. I don't know of any. Dan, correct me if you know of any, or any of the audience, correct me. I don't know of a full VR role-playing game yet.
The closest is probably Mouse.
The signing one?
Yes.
Well,
and I'm not even sure that qualifies as a role.
That wasn't VR, was it? That was just a video game, wasn't it?
No, it's VR.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I
need to play it so it sticks in my head.
One of the things they're claiming is that it's one of the few games that won't make you nauseated.
That's good, because it's not all the movement action. Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. The closest thing that I can think about it is using Tabletop Simulator to host a Tabletop RPG session, which is possible. It's actually one of the standard modules that comes with it.
Yeah, but that's not the same as like an actual VR immersive, fully interactive role-playing game. We've got a little bit of AR, and we got a little extended, ER and MR, and extended and mixed reality. But they're still kind of early in the early phases there. The content that's out there is more pretty than deep.
We're not at Ready Player One yet.
Oh, no. Which, I'm sorry, I'm not that big a fan. I read the book, I listened to the book with Will Wheaton and all that, and I haven't seen the movie, anyway, that's a whole other tangent. So, yeah, we're definitely not there yet. So some info from 2016 that's been amalgamated here. The ratio of female to male gamers, and again, this is a mixture of video gaming, PC gaming, console gaming, online gaming. They're all e-gaming, basically. In the U.S., ratio averaged out in 2016 was about 41 to 59 across the board. Again, this is just one particular set of studies. And that was 2 years ago. And the 2017 study was saying that has, in the UK, is now over 52%. And it's just continuing. There's an incredible momentum going on there. Canada was 49 to 51, Australia 47 to 53. And there's a lot of countries that the info is not recently available. France was 52 to 48, so that's female to male. And that's in 2016. Germany 49 to 51, Spain 45 to 55. So that's some 2016 info. And this also ties in, in 2013 I did a study, and then 2015 at Worldcon, which I'm trying to get the report done.
Right. Because
I need to get it done, on experiences of gender bias in the gaming industry and community. So that they went across the board. It included collectible card games, video games, role-playing, Morpegs and such,
right.
Tabletop role-playing games, live-action role-playing games, solo adventure books and modules, because representations of artwork or characters, etc. So it's including a wide range, and also wargaming, like tabletop wargaming. And one thing that definitely came out clearly from that, just about zero females in tabletop wargaming.
Which...
That was from the surveys.
Yeah.
That was the survey. It was very, very few out of several hundred respondents, and these were both quantitative and qualitative responses. And tiny numbers said that it was just asking if you even participated ever in the activity, and only a very small handful of females said they did.
And that makes me also wonder how many people are actually still doing. I know tabletop role playing game is still a thing. Not tabletop role-playing game, but tabletop war games are still a thing.
Yeah, well, Warhammer and stuff is big.
Exactly, and you look at strategic.
Strategic games.
Right, they're doing their conference, convention every year here.
Oh, you're talking about the Star Trek one?
No, it's strategic. There's an organization here in Spokane area that does a wargaming convention once a year. It's really small.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's not strategic rules, but I can look it up later.
Okay. But yeah, so for example, a UK study from trying to find the date. So this is also back 2014. So in the UK, they did a study that smartphones, about 70% of the population in the UK in 2014 had a smartphone capable of playing a game in the last 6 months, and played a game in the last 6 months. And so they interviewed over 4,000 UK residents, and said that 52% of the gaming audience, up from 49% 3 years before, so this is 2014, back in 2011, so 52% in the UK. It was commissioned by the Internet Advertising Bureau. How about the Ministry of City Walks?
Yes.
Also revealed there are more people over 44 years old playing games, 27% of the audience, than children, 22%, or teenagers. And the gamer audience reportedly stood at about 33.5 million Britons, 69% of the population. So that's in 2014, and those numbers have probably gone up even more since then.
I have never played a video game on a smartphone or even my tablet.
Yes, you have. When we did the Star Wars Jedi Challenges, that's a smartphone stuck into the voice.
Oh, okay. I was tricked.
That was on there.
I was tricked.
This is a low-end phone. This is a low-end, what's the provider? I've got 3 different phones here. So, Metro PCS, which is
Okay.
a T-Mobile series. So we have one for RPG research, one for RPG therapeutics, and then mine for my other businesses and personal use. So I get a little confused sometimes. But yeah, so this was the one that worked. It was compatible and was able to run. It was just a little laggy sometimes, but,
Right.
but it did work pretty well. It was pretty cool.
I
We still
forgot
gotta
that
break
VR
out the
system
VR
did
equipment.
rely on the smartphone.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Yeah, you stick it in the visor and it has a mirror periscope type system. That's how you're able to view it. So then, then there have been studies on the different genres that women are interested in. And, so the first thing is basically in major first world countries, on average, it's now 50-50, roughly. It might
Right.
be certain types of games are much more male and some types are much more female. But on the whole now, it's pretty darn close to 50.
Getting closer to the actual population mix that's there.
Yeah. Well, and in the U.S., isn't it slightly 1% or 2% more female than male?
Just barely.
Right. So that's in line. Another study done by Polygon, and this is just, this would just be people who are members of that. So this particular one's not good science necessarily, but it's still interesting to see what their particular followers. So this would be their own people and those who chose to respond. They were asked to list up to 9 games they played the most, and 69% of respondents who matched 3 games are women. I don't know what match 3 is. Is that like match 3 images or something like that? I don't know what that game is. 69% of family and farm sim. Casual puzzles, 42%. So anyway, that was from
Match
Polygon.
3 is a company. They
Okay.
do Angry Birds,
Oh,
Honey Pop,
okay.
Bejeweled Stars,
All right.
Gems with Friends. So yeah, they're that's an entire company. It's kind of like
Right. Okay. Now, to compare and contrast, there's an old posting on rpg.net a while ago. Can't figure out what the date is on it. It looks like 2012. Maybe not. And it quotes Alan Fine's Shared Fantasy from 1983. So it says, quote, in the Judges Guild Journal, so this is now we're focusing on role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, surveys, only 2.3 of the respondents were female, and in the Space Gamer survey, the figure was even lower, around 0.04%. These figures are probably not gross underestimations. At Origins 78, the major national convention, approximately 95% of those in attendance were male. In the Dragons referee list, only 3.8% were female. So this person who was writing about this, it started with that quote by Christopher Brace, I don't know who that is, did a quick summary of gender within gaming community. In 78, Judges Guild, 97.7% male. Space Gamer, 99.6%. Gary Gygax TSR, 1978, 85 to 90% male. Dragon, 96%. Gen Con 11, 95%. A 1999 WotC survey, 81%. See, and that's the thing. This is the problem with these surveys. Gen Con SoCal 2004, 77%. Interviews 2011, 77%. KC Gaming Fest 2011, 84%. And Network List 2011, 65.7%. Is the whole self-selection process, right? And my ongoing thing about gamer floaters, that unfortunately the most active, most visible gamers are not a representative of the majority of gamers at all, that they're a small, tiny, super active minority, in the single digits of representation that I think are greatly misleading. And it's hard to be able to prove this, right? It's hard to do a study on people who aren't engaged, right? But I mean, use an example both here and so I've been fairly engaged in the gaming communities in Seattle, Spokane area, northern Utah area, Bay Area, California, Oklahoma City, Tucson, Arizona, a few other places, but in those areas, you start to get to know all the active local gamers. You start to get to know them fairly well. The ones you see at the game stores and at the conventions, and if you post something, they show up for your games a lot. And you quickly start to get to know the same people show up over and over and over. And the ones who show up the most aren't always necessarily the ones you really want to be showing up, necessarily. We've talked about the gamer floater theory before. And so a lot of these studies, I think, are heavily skewed by that, because those are the people who are the most vocal, the most engaged, the most out there, and the most visible. Because again, I mean, this is the problem with, this is not empirical, this is my own experience. Right. Until about 83, 85, my experience of gaming was, it was about half and half male-female. Sometimes it was a little more male, but it was usually, if we had 6 gamers, at least 2 were female, often 3, or sometimes 4. But it was mixed, and it was not unusual to go to one gaming group that was all male and go to another gaming group and be the only male, and then oftentimes have a pretty good mix. And yeah, there'd usually be at least one who was the girlfriend of somebody, the GM or one of the players. That's why that stereotype was perpetuated. It exists.
My wife got into gaming because of me.
Okay, but around 83 to 85 is when I really saw it changing, because all the negativity was starting to come out. Girls were shying away because everybody was telling them that guys only play this, losers only play this, psychos only play this, and girls don't play this. And so it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, the media puts all that out.
And who wants to date a loser, psycho, murderer?
Right, or to game with.
Yeah.
Forget dating, let's just talk about just gaming. And then even the WotC study in 99 saying only 19% were female. By the 90s, as a lot of that stigma fell away, the late 90s, female gamers everywhere. So again, I think the gamer floater theory is what skews these numbers.
You see the people that are playing pickup games in the stores. You see the people at the convention.
Yeah.
And they're the most visible part of our organization, our family, whatever you want to call it. But they are also the smallest number of the groups. Mm-hmm. The majority of players, in my understanding, are actually those who are playing at home and not in the public eye.
Yeah, they don't post on forums. They don't answer surveys and questionnaires. They don't go to the game store, or rarely ever do.
Right.
They order on Amazon or whatever, and they're not hardcore gamers. They're casual gamers, and that's more, I think, the majority out there. It's really easy when you're gaming a lot
right.
to think that, because everybody around you games a lot, that's how everybody else games. Like, no, not at all. Majority of people have lives that they have to do with work and family, and they have nothing to do with gaming. And then once a week, they participate in their favorite recreational pastime, on the weekend or something, once a week. And I've had, in my groups, I get a lot of, as I've learned to weed out the gamer floaters that I didn't, sorry to be a gatekeeper in that way, but as I learned who the players were who were the most disruptive and the most difficult, and, that were problematic, the floaters, I have discouraged them from joining games, because I don't get to meet new gamers if they're known. For example, on Meetup, just one of the floaters saying that they're going to RSVP scares away all the others.
Right.
Because they get a reputation.
I've definitely seen that. I've seen people who will not come back to the entire store.
Right.
Because one player's there, and you don't have to sit at his table.
Right.
But, that
it's
happens.
uncomfortable for them. Why should they put up with that? And the majority of people I talk to who don't go to game stores, it's because they're noisy, dirty, smelly, and not friendly. As hard as the game store owners are trying to make them friendly.
Just saying.
Well, they're trying to make them friendly,
right.
But all too often, it just takes one gamer, one time, a new person shows up, because new people show up all the time, curious, and they see one person freaking out or yelling, and they're done. They're not coming back. They don't want to be around that again. So, and when I was doing that study, when I had more than 100 gamers, just that per month, I went out of my way to say none of them could be in more than one group. So I had about a dozen or so groups, and none of them could be in more than one group. So that way I got to meet a lot more of different gamers. So even though the floaters showed up and I did run them, and that's how I got to know more of them and who they were, I got to meet a whole bunch of other gamers that I never see at the game stores. They just happened to try out Meetup at the time, because that was where I got about half of the people.
Right.
And then they also had seen my postings everywhere else. And I met all these other gamers that I've never seen, I never saw before. I'd say about half of them I'd never met before, and a quarter of them I've never seen since, though I know they're still gaming and such. I hear of from time to time. But they actively do not engage in conventions, game stores, etc. And if I'd had more staff for that study, because I wanted to get up to around 1,000 players to really get the study done on RPG optimization someday. But I need a lot more GMs to do that. It's more than one person can do.
Right, exactly.
I think that's where we really start to see that start to differentiate.
I do want to point out that you mentioned you were kind of gatekeeping that thing. There's a
I was saying that a
significant
little
difference
ironically, but
between gatekeeping where you're saying I want to keep out a certain class or a
Right.
certain group
Yeah.
of people, but when you're excluding a individual
With that
due
you
to
have
behavioral
specific history
patterns,
with, yes.
then that's not gatekeeping. That's housekeeping.
Yeah, I was being a little bit ironic about that,
Right.
but yeah.
I'm just letting the audience
Or
know the
facetious.
difference.
I was ironic in that we're talking about don't be gatekeepers, and it was ironic that I was then saying I was a gatekeeper, but I was being facetious about that.
So keep your letters polite.
Yeah. I was just kidding. So anyway, so the good news is it's equalizing out. And there's been plenty of effort, and that's great news. And there's a lot of very active organizations working very hard to make that so, and a number of companies making products. The World of Darkness fiasco.
Yes, that was it. You had something?
Daniel, you said something?
I'm still with you.
Okay. World of Darkness had several fiascos. They're regrouping their number of people that they're using. In fact, basically, they almost all got fired. Let me see, make sure I can read this.
It's just been an ongoing fiasco.
In 2015, White Wolf, which hadn't really been an independent company since 2006, came back as a subsidiary of Paradox Interactive with the goal of starting the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade.
Right.
Although ended by the original company in 2004, the line was so popular it spawned a 20th anniversary version in 2011 by Onyx Path Publishing, and the reins were handed over to, quote, new leadership. I am reading,
Right.
by the way, from...
Try to summarize it rather than read the whole thing, because it's kind of long.
So, the problems began in 2017. Alpha playtest included a pre-generated character that was a pedophile.
Mm-hmm. That was one of the first big issues. There were
Right.
a number.
Further backlash with charged languages being like triggered, comparisons of neo-Nazis to social justice warriors. White Wolf tried to defend itself, denying associated with bigoted movements. There was also, following that, we had the real-life Chechnya gay genocide, which was depicted as a vampire activity in the game. So they took a real-world activity and made it a plot
said
point.
that was a front for some vampire stuff that was really going on.
Right.
Was that Chechnya?
Chechnya.
Chechnya. Yes, the Chechnya stuff. Yeah. Yes. You also posted your little thing on Grim and Perilous Studios.
Grim and Perilous Studios was the response to D&D Gate.
That was the response to it. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And let's see. So we earlier had touched on sexuality in role-playing gaming, and so that is something that has to be taken into account, especially if you start mixing, if you have a mixed gender group, whatever.
Yeah, whatever the genders are,
Yeah.
whether biological or otherwise.
That's going to create, the 3 forbidden topics for casual conversation: sex, religion, and politics. Right? Those of us who were raised in an earlier generation were taught you never discuss with mixed company and in polite conversation sex, religion, and politics. That's just not appropriate. You can do so with close friends and family and such, or in business if it's appropriate. But otherwise, that's verboten topics.
The internet,
now
everybody
just blah. It's just everybody's oversharing.
Really discuss sports such as football and soccer.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
My country, soccer is also verboten because teams are a very big deal for people.
Because of team rivalry, yeah. Like in Oklahoma and Texas, because I was doing contracts there. Oh my goodness, northern Texas and southern Oklahoma just shut down when there was an Oklahoma versus Texas game.
Right.
I literally saw Highway Patrol parked on the side of the road with his laptop playing the game as I went by and stuff. And the freeway was practically empty. It was only like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And Oklahoma is not a high population area, but still it was pretty dead because of the game that was going, whatever the time was, 9, 10, whatever it was. Because a game was actively on and everybody was glued to the sets. It was, yeah, for some people, that's just another religion. So, yeah, you have to be very careful about that, definitely. Although, again, if it's not, if you don't have, if there isn't a rivalry issue, then of course that's a strong bonding thing that people can have great conversations. You know, a lot of times people say, you know, representatives of surface conversations. So how about those Dodgers, right? You know,
right.
You know, people will use that as an icebreaker for conversation because it's not necessarily personal for other people. There are people who are hardcore about it, but there are many people that are not so much. Yeah, football. Yeah, that people can get very passionate about that in other games. So it is something to be, again, know your audience, of course.
Yeah, there's never been a riot caused by a sports game.
So I want to do a quick little example as we're getting near the end here of how much things have changed, and there's still plenty of room for improvement. So here's a snapshot from 1913. This is H.G. Wells's Little Wars. This is the precursor to what would later develop, you know, for example, into Chainmail, which later then, you know, was a precursor to Dungeons and Dragons. And just even in the introduction here, it's very telling. So again, Little Wars by H.G. Wells, the famous author of, you know, various science fiction from the late 1800s.
And what year is this?
This is 1913.
Right.
So keep this in mind. Little Wars is the game of kings, and this is, of course, a British perspective as well, which is a striated caste
right.
environment, is the game of kings for players in an inferior social position. It can be played by boys of every age, from 12 to 150, and even later if the limbs remain sufficiently supple, by girls of the better sort, and by a few rare and gifted women. This is to be a full history of Little Wars from the recorded and authenticated beginning until the present time, an account of how to make little warfare, and hints of the most priceless sort for the recumbent strategist. So just those little comments right there related to social position, inferior social position. Because before it was the military and the noble elite that could do war games.
That they had the time and money to do
Yeah,
them.
exactly. And the leisure, right? Yeah, the time is a big part of it. And then the reference to girls of the better sort and the few and rare gifted women. Yeah. That's 1913. We've heard some examples here. Now here's another one. This is an autobiography by Wizards of the Coast, Shelley Mazzanoble, Confessions of a Part-Time Sorceress, A Girl's Guide to the Dungeons & Dragons Game. Now, I kind of chuckle a little on the Girl's Guide thing because she wasn't a girl then, she was a woman.
Right.
And, you know, maybe it was intended to try to attract more teenage girls or something. Maybe that was the reason for that.
That was the target audience.
Right. And so it's, and you know, and it's a lot of pink girly girl stuff. She talks about at length how she is a girly girl, like that she liked to be a girly girl, and that's her own verbiage. So this is from 2007. But as far as I know, this is the first book that a woman's writing an autobiography of her tabletop role-playing game experience.
I'm going to say it's safe to say it's the very first.
No, I don't think it's. I'm sure people have written on shorter amounts, but this is the first thing, like a major publication.
I was agreeing with that. This is the first book written about anybody's autobiography with playing games.
No, because Gygax and others did.
Okay.
So, you know, and I could be saying, if you're aware of an earlier book, please let me know. I'll add it to the library and read it. So, an introduction here. I really want to play the D&D game. I have never said that before, although as you could likely guess, I know more avid gamers than the average woman. I am literally surrounded by them. My husband, both of my sons, and even most of my nephews spend a great deal of time rolling dice and discussing their great adventures in detail. I've spent countless hours listening to the stories of gamers. The men in my life are predominantly gamers, and the only thing gamers love to do more than play the games is to tell the stories of the games they have played, war stories. Some of the stories they tell repeatedly. They are like fishing tales or golf stories. They get bigger and better over the years. Don't believe me? Ask my husband to tell you the Wubba Wubba story. He will, and you'll laugh, trust me. I have only been tempted to play once, years ago when the kids were starting to get into D&D. And now I am tempted to play D&D once again. Shelley's style is so entertaining and easy to read that she's inspired me to try again. She breaks it down in such a way that I actually understand the lingo, an amazing feat when you consider how little I actually understood after all these years listening to The Guy's Crazy Adventures. Diana Salvatore, and then we have R.A. Salvatore on the other one, so these are little intros about the thing. So, top 10 myths about Dungeons & Dragons. We love to shoot these things down. You need to speak with a British accent when playing. You have to play in a dark, dank basement in the home of someone's mother. We've talked about that a number of times.
Yeah.
You need to drink full sugar soda and eat chips that stain your fingers orange. Where's the Cheetos? No one cool plays or has ever played. We have a whole list. I have a page somewhere. I've added them in a number of my presentations.
Yeah.
Of all the popular actors and basketball players and rap stars, etc., and other singers that are gamers.
Politicians on that list?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
everybody then.
Yeah, pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
The one a couple of people go straight to is like Vin Diesel and stuff, the action
Right, yeah.
stuff. But even like Hulk Hogan and many, I mean, there there are plenty of examples, and I need to move that from the old site to the new site so that people can just see famous people at game. Harrison Ford, Judi Dench. I always remember her as Moneypenny from James Bond, but she's been a lot of other stuff. She usually has short white hair and such. A lot of people I was shocked. J-Lo.
Yeah, there is a large proportion of the famous people that are actors.
Yes, well, yeah. But a number of basketball players and others too.
And rappers.
Yeah, exactly. It will take you the rest of your natural life to learn the rules. Depends on the game.
Right. Some of them I just play for years and never learn the rules.
No one you know has played or still plays Dungeons & Dragons. Well, that's definitely not true for us.
Yeah.
Actually, what I run into is I go out in the public, because remember, I'm kind of in this weird, like, I've slowly become more and more part of the geek community, geek culture community, but I've never really been, until I've actively worked at it with RPG research and such, I've never really been a core part of it. I did computers and I did gaming, and these are very geeky things, but that's what I did, and that was it. And then I went on and did basketball and martial arts and motorcycling and hot rod racing, what have you. Completely different population, completely different interests. And so I've never really felt connected to the geek community. I've always felt like an outsider looking in that respect. And my girlfriend, my fiance, has been trying to bring me up to speed over the years. But it always feels like I'm trying to catch up. I have so many gaps in my geek knowledge. My geek card is not properly punched many times, we find on the show. And people are incredulous that I don't know such and such a reference. I'm like,
Sorry, I did not see that movie or read that
I am
comic
deep
book.
in these areas, and then not a whole lot in between there. But I'm interfacing all the time with doctors and recreational therapists and lawyers and other professions that are not generally geeky fields, automotive, etc. And so these are not usually gamers. However, almost everybody has heard of Dungeons & Dragons. Just about everybody that I've run into, young and old, up to about 70 or so. Then they start to have heard about it because of the cohort effect. Has at least heard of Dungeons & Dragons. Most of them, if they've only just heard of it peripherally, only remember the bad stuff from the 80s and such about it if they're older. If they're younger, it's more about Big Bang Theory or something like that.
Or they think it's a computer game.
And then that's the other cohort is if you were exposed to it during the 70s and 80s, then you think of all the negative stuff about tabletop. If it was more the 90s, a lot of people associated it with the live action version, the foam swords and beating on each other.
Right.
People would describe, so if they were coming into adulthood and aware of all this stuff, they think more of LARP rather than tabletop as D&D. And then in the more recent years, most people think of it as electronic role-playing games, computer-based role-playing games, online games and such is what most people think of, equated to, not tabletop. So really, there's quite the cohort effect there about what people associate when you say RPG or especially Dungeons & Dragons. Now, I'm not aware of an actual Dungeons & Dragons LARP. I mean, I know there's Dungeon and stuff like that, Living Dungeon or whatever, but that's not...
It's True Dungeon.
True Dungeon, yeah, but that's not D&D, it's D&D-esque, right?
Right, you're not going to roll a die 20 to hit
But I
something.
mean, there's the D&D computer games, and there's the D&D tabletop games, and there's the D&D solo adventure books and modules. I don't know that there's a D&D LARP.
No, there's not
one?
There's not a Dungeons &
We got
Dragons
Nero and Amped Guard and a gazillion others, but I don't know.
Yeah, none of them are branded as Dungeons & Dragons.
Because it's a licensing issue, if nothing else.
And none of them use... now, they'll use monsters that are related to...
Right. Well, people will rip it off all the time,
Yeah,
but as far as any license game, I'm not aware of.
Yeah, nothing.
If you start playing Dungeons & Dragons, your friends will abandon you and your subscription to Match.com will mysteriously be deactivated.
Thank goodness. My wife would kill me.
The game involves boards, incense, finger pricks, solemn oaths, sacrifices, or hazing rituals. We've talked at length about those misconceptions. Yeah. You will start dressing like a musical theatre major and insist on wearing leotards, capes, or turtlenecks.
That would be expensive, and no.
You will develop an insatiable urge to attend Renaissance festivals.
So? What's your point?
So her opening chapter, chapter 1, Babes in Boyland. Let me just lay it out here. I'm a girly girl. So that's Shelley Mazzanoble right there. I get pedicures, facials, and microdermabrasions. I own more flavors of body lotion, scrubs, and rubs than Baskin-Robbins could dream of putting in a cone. I organize my shoes by heel height, sort my handbags by strap length, and store my nail polish on the butter shelf of my refrigerator. I shop, watch soaps, and religiously dish on the fashion choices and bad judgment of whomever Us Weekly deems the most newsworthy. I not only embrace my inner girl, I fully on squeeze the stuffing out of her. Look, let's squeeze it out. Oh, better. I am also a rear-kicking, spell-checking, staff-wielding, 134-year-old elf sorceress named Astrid Bellagio. At least I am once a week when I play Dungeons & Dragons. So that's just her little opening bit. It's a fun read. So my fiance, when I was sharing it with her and such, was kind of mixed because my fiance is definitely feminine, but doesn't like all the pink girly girl stuff.
Right.
So so she did not fully connect with Shelley's perspectives in that respect. But there's some interesting in it. Maybe this should be something we should be adding to our series. We know we've been reading Robin's Laws and such. Maybe it might be worth doing some highlights from this in some of our upcoming RPG theory and apply. What do you think?
Well, we also have another book in front of that we wanted to make sure we started reading something from. We're not going too in depth in sexuality.
The section. No, okay. Which one were you talking about? We got a whole bunch of them.
Started it.
Well, we've got a ton of them. I don't know. We'll get right to it, but
A quick thing.
What's that, Dan?
Just a quick thing. As someone from the newer generation,
yes,
I did have some exposure to some things that might explain the perception of D&D as a video game. I posted a few image links on the Jitsi chat.
Okay.
We have a game called Dungeons and Dragons Chronicles of Mystara.
So if you can, in the future,
surprisingly enough, it's a beat-em-up game, and it's pretty fun actually.
In the future, if you can post these in our Discord channel, that would make it more accessible to more people. Just so you know.
All right, I'll get on that then.
Okay, yeah, but I'll check those out and see about transposing them over for the show notes. So we got some images here. Chronicles of Mystara. See that there? Of course, I don't have that shared. Let's see. Let's make this so we can share it. Window capture.
The book I was talking about, the one about role-playing game studies.
Oh, yeah.
We have to dig through that one, too.
Well, yeah, but I'm going through critiquing the heck out of that first. Boy, I have a lot. So, red ink is where I feel that they're either greatly mistaken or I strongly disagree. It's about 80% red ink in my comments. There's some green and blue and black in there, and those are various degrees of agreement or new stuff to learn. But yeah. So, but that's good. That's the good thing about debate, having an open discussion and such. You know, I'm all for that. Let's see if that's not wonderfully visible, but that is the image he sent. Chronicles of Mystara, and then
Yeah, I played this game before.
This is the video game, yeah. So what about that game, Dan?
Excuse me. It's an arcade beat-em-up game, so people might see, oh, it's a D&D cabinet on an arcade, and they might not have contact with anything else. So they think, oh, D&D is that arcade game, kind of like, the Simpsons arcade game, which also got popular around the same time, which might explain because people who own arcades, they might not have contact with it in any other way.
Right. Sure. No, I understand that. And that's why we're talking about the cohort effect. And again, this book from Mazanoble is basically somebody who is not a gamer trying to talk them and explain to them what role-playing gaming in D&D actually is and what it isn't. And, to demystify it for probably teenage girls is what it seems to be targeting mostly. And a lot of pink.
Yes, it is. There's 3 colors, black, white, and pink.
That was the thing that turned off Katie the most, was all the pink. But it has a checklist of what's recommended, what you'll need to play, dice, pencil, etc. Recommendation for making characters. And there's a lot of humor interjected throughout. So, for example, we've got she's shoe shopping, purse shopping, and such. And it says, oh, please, please. But will work for masterwork armor. But it's got lots of other stuff in there, too.
Yeah.
So,
I got my heels of +2 charisma.
Right. So it's got some funny, little interesting comments. Top 10 spells every woman should know. There's a number of top 10 lists in here and such. And so, for example, teleport, charm person, resist energy, find the path, ventriloquism, break enchantment, calm emotions, sleet storm, glitter dust, and invisibility, and fly through it as an extra one. So, yeah, so you can find this on Amazon and such pretty easily. It's not one of the books that's becoming outrageously expensive.
Right.
It's a light read. Something else to mention as we wrap up here. Anyway, if you would like us to discuss more on this topic, one of our researchers is actually doing Omar in Saudi Arabia. His topic, the research topic he picked to do a blog posting on, is about gender representation in video games and such. So he'll have some more depth in it with his blog posting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that one.
And then Eric's blog posting that we're going through right now is on experiences of bleed in gaming. So it'll touch on that some more. But just a quick FYI for those of you who are fellow Zombie Orpheus Entertainment, Dead Gentlemen, Gamers, Journey Quest, Hot Jockey fans, Matt Vansel, if you're a supporter of Matt Vansel on Patreon, because he did go back to Patreon and reactivate it, since he couldn't find another platform that's viable. If you've been supporting him for a while, the goodies are coming out. So I recently received this week a couple of copies, both the hardcover and the softcover. This is The Stray and the Hole in the Stars. Sandy has a problem. Aside from the cancer, no one on campus believes he saw the ghost building. And why would they? As legends go, it's a stupid one. No one really believes the old admin building vanished in the 70s. And whatever Sandy saw was right after the restarted chemo. Clearly he was hallucinating. That would explain it. What it doesn't explain is the postcard he found in his dorm room on the night of the building reappeared. Or why the girl on the postcard looked exactly like the barista down at the hub, the one he's in love with. Turns out she's a hop jockey, a cross-world troublemaker. And she's been looking for him. Or rather, for who she thinks he is. She's mistaken him for Garrett, Sandy's genius roommate, this generation's Einstein, and needs his help reading a map beyond all comprehension, weighing his heart against the truth and not wanting to miss what may be his only real chance at adventure. Sandy does what anyone might do in that situation, and as a result, triggers a series of events that will ultimately destroy the campus. A science fiction fantasy romp across space, time, myth, and reality, this is a story of impending doom, unrequited love, and imposter syndrome. So basically, college.
Right.
So Matt Vance always has a great sense of it. He's the writer for The Gamers, Journey Quest, Demon Hunters, and many, 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 many other works. So this is his latest novel in the Hop Jockey series. And we got a copy, if you're a larger donor, the pilot episode of Wish You Were Here from 2008, the script for Hop Jockey. So hopefully somewhere down the road this will become a reality.
And you're not going to edit that one, right?
This is no. So there's so much that's been going on. We're doing 6 shows a week, 2 on Thursdays.
Right.
And tomorrow we're going to be at Spark Central, and the Inlander magazine's going to be doing a photo shoot of our drop-in and RPG session there for the community programs that we do there. So if you're in the Spokane area, come on by, drop into Spark Central. It's down in the Kendall Yards area off of Monroe, just above the Spokane River there. And swing on by, say hi, maybe drop in and do some games. And hopefully a good number of our staff will be there. Really hoping they can show up. I know Dan can't make it because it's a bit of a flight from Brazil. Hope someday he can come up and visit. And there's a lot more in the works. John, congratulations. You got hired this week by RPG Therapeutics LLC. You're now a paid professional game master. And you got your business card.
With my new business cards. I know you can all see this.
So, yep, congratulations. And there's a half dozen others in the queue that have applied since, hearing about you getting hired and such. Just
right.
boom, 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 boom on LinkedIn and such.
Amazing, you dangle a
Well,
dollar
LinkedIn
in front of
is,
somebody.
not LinkedIn, excuse me. Indeed
Right.
has been flaky. I had somebody call me this week because they applied and were verifying because they didn't seem to think, luckily they called, and I did not get anything. There was nothing in the system, and they'd gone through the full application process, and I didn't get an email or anything. So I sent them to our website, my website, RPG Therapeutics, to fill out the online application there instead.
I had applied twice for you to get
Right.
an email.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not reliable. But it's a great pool if people stumble
Right.
across it without ever expecting it. So, but for those of you who didn't know, there's both contract and part-time positions open for paid professional game masters in the greater Spokane area. Starts at $20 an hour. If you get your certifications and such, you can potentially get up to $40 to $60 an hour down the road. And so that's over on rpgtherapeutics.com if people are interested, or you can just search for it under indeed.com. And what else do we want to hurry and wrap up here?
How close are we to getting rebroadcasting the training?
Rebroadcasting the training?
I'm sorry, making the training available online. RPG education.
RPG.education. I had to do another database update, so it's temporarily offline again. This is why I hate PHP. The enrollment for RPG.education, so if you're currently a student, you'll have access as I fix the database, hopefully tonight. New enrollments begin February 1st.
Got it.
So February 1st, you can start enrolling in both the current and new classes that'll be in the system there.
You want to move up in RPG Therapeutics, you need to get your certifications.
Yep. And if you just want to be a better gamer, or you're intending to apply it into your own industry, these are all useful classes. Basically, originally it was 77 classes, but as I've had to break them into smaller chunks, it's around 100 different classes now that I'm trying to port into this online platform. And the introduction and lower intermediate ones are very inexpensive, because once I write them and upload them and do the audio and the video and all the links and everything, I don't have to spend my time on them, versus the more intermediate to advanced ones. I have to spend a lot of time manually training people, watching videos, doing assessments, etc. So those take a lot more of my time, and so those are a lot more expensive. Basically, the intro classes are between $25 to $100 a class, and you get 6 months to a year and a half of access to pay, like a little extra. The intermediate classes are between $100 to $1,000, and then the advanced classes are $1,000 on up, just depending upon how involved the program is. So that's pretty easy sliding scale there. Now that's as I get them moved to as much online as possible. Without them being online, generally classes have to start around $500 to $800 on up, just because of the time that it takes,
Right.
To do everything. So the hope is that will help disseminate and get out to a lot more people as I move more of it online. But the problem is, Moodle is PHP based, and you guys have all heard me rant about how bad PHP is security-wise. And it still holds. Another thing I'm looking at is a little open source social network. It's Java based. That may also solve, we may be able to get away from using Google Docs and all of that in the near future too. That'll help with collaboration for projects and for games and things like that. So that's something I'm in the early stages of evaluating. I'll share more info as I know more on that. And then tonight, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., Dan Ivey is game mastering Eves of Mirkwood, Adventures in Middle-earth. So it's the One Ring role-playing game ported over to D&D 5th edition. And he has played it a few times. This is the first time Dan will be GMing. This is part of his required training as he works towards his diploma as a level 1 game master and being able to run games at our different community programs. So he's been running regular D&D 5th edition. And did he do Star Wars or not? I guess that was Brad who did Star Wars, right?
Brad and Charles was.
Yeah, I knew Charles would, but yeah. But so we got a checklist of all these different games that each of our game masters needs to have a baseline, and this is one of those baseline games.
Has he run No Thank You Evil yet?
Who, Dan?
Yeah. I think he has.
I think he has, yeah, okay. He's done No Thank You Evil as well, yeah. But this is the next one on his list that he needs to check off, is doing the Eves of Mirkwood in this controlled bubble, getting feedback, and then letting him do it out in the wild under supervision. So this is just part of it. So if you're curious about Adventures in Middle-earth, so it's D&D 5th edition adapted to Middle-earth, and the introductory adventure, spoilers, Eves of Mirkwood, which is a pretty short adventure. It can be done in 3 hours. It's tricky to do, but it can be done. At most 2 sessions. It's just meant to introduce people to the basic mechanics and running the game. So it's both an intro for the players and for the GM. It's a good intro. And so that's what's happening tonight from 6 to 9. And so we hope you will join us then. Dan, are you still going to be trying to join for that game? Or is it going to be too late for you?
I'll try to stay awake.
Okay.
It's so far so good. I don't feel at all too tired.
Okay.
That might change, but so far I'm quite interested in some of these characters, so I'll try to join. And
okay. Did you track down some of the pre-gen PDFs? So if you wanted to play, you could.
I sent him to him.
Oh, you sent him to him. Okay.
Oh,
Good. Okay.
Yeah, it was sent one, and I think I already have a character chosen.
Good.
Is there any? Do I need to have any more material other than the pre-gen characters in order to, ease the burden on the GM, or just keep track of my own stuff?
Just keep track of your own stuff will help the GM. He'll be helping with the rules and such. I mean, generally what you want is you want to have the D&D 5th Edition Player's Handbook and the Adventures in Middle-earth Adventurer's Guide. Those are usually the 2 books that you need, which I think you can go buy as PDFs if you want.
Yeah, the D&D book is not legally sold as a PDF.
Well, they do have the intro PDF.
Right, they have the basic rules
PDF,
which is
a good
absolutely
start.
free,
Yeah.
and has, for running Adventures in Middle-earth, has everything you need. You don't need anything more than the free one. The Adventures in Middle-earth Adventurer's Guide, or is a legally purchasable PDF.
Right, through Cubicle 7 and such.
Right.
But you can get by with Eves of Mirkwood with just the character sheet for now.
Right, thank you.
You bet.
I actually do have the D&D 5 core rulebook. My sister bought the core set.
Good.
She actually tried to run a session. It was quite good.
Okay, good. Good. All right, well, we're over time here, and we need to wrap up, and because people will hopefully be showing up soon, and I got to get out of the seat so that Dan can be the GM man. Dan the GM man. And we're talking about Dan here in Spokane, Dan Ivey, not Daniel down in Brazil. It's going to be confusing. Dan, yes.
Why can't Danielle be here? Just make
Right,
it more
there
fun.
we go. Danielle, well, she might.
Yay!
I don't think she will. But
Yeah,
she
she's
said
still
she
feeling
might.
ill.
That will be fun. We got Danielle, Daniel, and Dan.
Well, so I'm sensing somebody whose name starts with D.
In a D&D game, huh?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Please do swing by rpgtalkshow.com. Feel free to email rpgresearcher@gmail.com. That's rpgresearcher@gmail.com. If you have questions, topics you'd like us to discuss in next week's show, remember we've moved our show time to Thursdays, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we're right here on twitch.tv/RPG Research. If you get a chance, donate to RPG Research. Go to rpgresearch.com and click on donate. And whether you can do a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can do a subscription through PayPal, or you can do a subscription through Patreon and get early access to various goodies, get access to videos and essays a month or more before the general public, and help RPG Research continue to do more research and more community programs using role-playing games and music to help improve various populations' lives. Wherever you may be, happy gaming and namarie.
Dream well.